Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're talking about the one and only legendary turbo token. Oh, wow. Listen up, ladies and gentlemen, right? Look at our boy, right? Lumix. Shout out to you, bro, once again for these animations. Guys, this is always a good pack a punch, right? I've said it in the other video, but I'm going to say it one more time. Animated videos like these, videos that are even longer, videos that are funny, videos that just give entertainment, always can be they are always a net positive because they always have the potential to go viral. And it's just nice, right? Looking at this, right, we have to be honest, is much nicer than just even a picture, right? Pictures are awesome, don't get me wrong, but these types of videos are what we love, right? It's just the reality. Look, there's actually some great news surrounding Turbo, right? We had some people that won. All right, we're thrilled to announce the winners of Turbo Toad Token Kudos Phase 1, right? And it showed some people that won. But the main thing I want to talk about today is, ladies and gentlemen, we got listed on Stealth, okay, on the Stealth Exchange. How about Turbo, the first AI generated meme coin, launched in 2023, now decentralized and powered by the community, right? So you can swap it, get the Stealth app here. Stealth, doesn't use smart contracts, cutting down security risks and update hassles. So you can get Turbo now on this exchange. And when we go on their exchange, 55,000 followers. They get a couple of hundred to a couple thousand views per post. So not bad for an exchange. And of course, they're going to be bringing in that extra volume, that extra volatility. And ladies and gentlemen, this is always one of those things that's a net positive, right? There's no other way to say it. Getting listed on another exchange always brings some type of exposure, some type of volume, and it's going to benefit us really, really heavily during the bull run, right? During the ultimate bull run and altcoin season. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the technical analysis. Okay. So when I look at this, right, this does not really surprise me, the fact that we are getting corrected. This is why I always say, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, these nice big pumps are great, but the context of the market is that we're not at a time where, we're going to be consistently printing these. Not yet, right? We will be consistently printing big candles like this during the peak of altcoin season, which is why it's the craziest thing in the world. You're going to be seeing, you know, on a bad day like a 15% pump, on a good consistent day like a 30, 40, 50% pump. And imagine that for a whole month, right? Imagine that. The thing is, ladies and gentlemen, you got to realize, if Turbo goes up 10% in one day, okay, that is a lot of money. And if it goes up 20% the next day, you have to realize that's a lot more money. And eventually, right, it goes higher and higher. And let's say your coin, right, let's say Turbo 10x, okay, Turbo 10x within a 2 week span. And you're like, whoa, this is crazy, right? This is crazy. We're like at 3 or 4 billion market cap. And then what happens when we get a 10% day there, right? It might not seem like a lot because it's in terms of percentages, because it's a 10%, but a 10% on a 4 billion market cap Turbo coin is an extra 400 million market cap. And for people that have been buying at these lower levels, that is an insane multiplier. That's the thing, people, right? That is the thing, that later on, those 10, 15, 20 consistent percent days that are near the end of the altcoin season, the last week or two, they still hit like a truck in terms of the net positive for your account. Because at that point, we're no longer dealing with, 10% up for the day on a 300 million market cap coin, 400 million cap coin for Turbo. No, we're dealing with billions of market cap. So a 10, 20, 15%, 25% day at that point is really nice. Like, it's really, really nice. But look, right? We saw this huge pump on the 14th. It was very, very nice. But ever since then, practically the last 2 weeks, we have been getting corrected, right? And there's been zero, absolute zero signs of any reversals at this moment, right? We had this sell off, right? We can even go back, ladies and gentlemen, and you can go back to the video. We said how important and crucial it was to close above this. Now, some people think technical analysis is random. It's really not, because the moment we closed below it, I said practically I gave out the warning signs. I gave out the emergency bells. I know some people were not happy. They're like, hey, the title is a little bit too FUD, too bearish. But people, I give you these warnings for a reason, right? I want people to watch the video so that they're informed of why things are going down. Because The thing is, a lot of people don't understand why things go down. Okay. The fact that, let's say, Turbo was up an extra 25% a week or two ago might put a lot of stress on people, right? You got to realize a lot of people in general are emotional in this world. A lot of people don't understand what they're even seeing on this screen right now. So, when they see, oh, I made $1,000 or I'm up this much, and then a week or two later, they're down 25%, they might start getting worried. And the last thing I want for people to do is to panic sell at a time like this. This is why I put sometimes urgent titles, urgent thumbnails, is because the information is important. I need people to listen so they don't screw this up. You have to understand, people, we are super, super close to altcoin season. If things don't break out with Bitcoin dominance over the next week or two and things do get extended, it'll be like maximum. I'm telling you, maximum near towards the end of the year, right? We are so close to the finish line, ladies and gentlemen. If Bitcoin dominance breaks, then we can be seeing Turbo at its peak within a 2 to 3 month span from here. Okay. That is how close we can potentially be. Okay, we're not close to the finish, or we're not close to the middle line. We're definitely not close to the beginning line. And the last thing I need for people to do is to mess it up out of impulse, out of them being scared. Okay, now we got that out of the way. All right, let's look at the technical analysis in depth. So, look, this over here, all right, this order block is what we're looking at. We've been looking at this practically ever since, this call over here around the 14th, 15th, and 16th of July. We've been talking about this main zone, and I still believe it is ultimately going to play out. Now, technically, technically, we already touched the top of the wick, but I do believe we want to go deeper into this candle over here. Right? I do believe we want to get more in the center of this candle. So for me, we should be seeing a smaller drop of just a couple percent, right? I don't really think we should be breaking down to the next level zone. We do have a order block here on the daily, which, I mean, 10% is not that crazy to wick into. So that's like the maximum we should honestly drop. But that, even then, I'd be a little bit surprised, right? But mainly I'm looking for this zone over here, especially if we make it a little bit tighter, right? More or less something like this. One more little down move before we start going sideways. I really do believe, the sideways movement is just around the corner, especially that August is also around the corner. Okay. August is also around the corner. And ladies and gentlemen, we also just literally took out this last weekly candle over here, right? We took out the last weekly candle, right? So going down a little bit wouldn't surprise me. Plus, let's just say hypothetically we close the way we close. It would not surprise me that in the beginning of August, we would see maybe a fake out the first few days just to take this zone out, right? So, like I said, we could come back down to here, boom, boom, and eventually start reversing. Okay, when we look at the monthly candle, right? When we look at the monthly candle, we do technically have a order block right over here for the monthly, right? We do have one here. If we go on the weekly, right? There's this gap. We go on a daily, right? It ties into this gap. So, like I said, that probability of dropping 10 more percent, you know, it's not the craziest, but it's also not, really unlikely that it will happen. Either way, I still have a lot of faith for Turbo, right? I have a lot of faith for Turbo. I don't think, we should be going down, all the way down here. I would be really, really surprised. I still expect the 3 month candle to be fairly solid, but I think the big, big, ultimate big pumps are mainly going to come during September. I still think August is going to be a great month. Don't get me wrong. I still think August is going to be a great month. And I think there's a good chance that we come back to take this area out at the bare minimum. However, the next time we do start getting a nice pump, this is going to be the key zone I'm looking for to wick before we get some type of pullback, right? So let's just say we come back down a little bit. We go like this eventually, we do something like this, and then we go like this. And that's where we start correcting a little bit, slower, a little bit deeper. Okay. But yeah, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.